We are at COVID has shown us that you need to be adaptable and ability to change and make quick decisions. And that paid off where within 10 months the world produced vaccines. Within 3 years we've a catastrophic event like that. It couldn't have happened unless there was close collaboration and coordination, and it's no more about silos. It's about thinking multidisciplinary, thinking interdisciplinary. I mean, we were just discussing KPIT, thinking of trying to get into ventilators. You don't know what's going to work. So I think being creative, being able to find answers and solutions. So to find solutions, you have to know problems. To find problems, you have to look around you and get involved in what's happening. Where are the problem areas? And I think that is where the future is coming to. And secondly, I think DIE is no more just tokenism. It's there to stay. Because if the world is full of different kinds of people who bring different expertise, different capabilities to the table, and we are thinking of multidisciplinary approaches, we are thinking of interdisciplinary, then we need to have everyone's opinion and everything matters. So I think that's where the DIE and everyone comes in, and gender is just one of the aspects. There's so much more beyond gender. So I think the future is when everyone will learn to work together, everyone will learn to understand each other's language, because it's not just a language that you're listening, but today there's no difference between engineering and medicine. Which was such a divide. You did biology or you did maths. But today doctors better know all about IT and big data analytics and what have you. So I think that's a reason. I had a grandmother who in the early 1900s was orphan at 2 years of age. She lost her father, and in those days if you lost the father it was as good as orphan, because the mother herself had no one, and she would end up going to her brother's or her parents' house and living a widow's life. So then to get rich she was married off at the age of 5 as a child marriage, because then she became somebody else's responsibility. And by 8 years she was a child widow. So you imagine a double whammy, a girl who first, her father dies, then she's married off and her husband died. Bad omen. She's finished all the men. So in that situation, she was lucky to have an empowered woman and a mother who saw that my life is finished, but I need to look at something that my daughter can do. And at 8 years of age, with her brother, she requested her brother to hand over the daughter to Sri Maharshi Karve, who's in Pune. There are a lot of people from India. Maharshi Karve had started opening up the doors for educating women. And she came as an orphan and lived there, worked in their house. He had 2 sons, so he was taken over. He had kind of adopted me, work in the house as my daughter, study, and she went on to become a doctor. She was 4 foot nothing, but the rest of our growing years, we often found her quite irritating, because for everything she was, don't waste the water, don't waste this, don't do that, because she'd grown up through great hardships. But at the same time, if he said, oh, I can't do this, she said, what rubbish. So it was never about a girl. It was, she said, I have been in Africa and conducted my own delivery. So that was the woman of 4 foot nothing in a matter of steel. So you grew up, and she had produced a son who had 3 daughters. I was the eldest, who felt very proud because he'd grown up by seeing an empowered woman. So he empowered his 3 daughters. All 3 of us are doing extremely well and very independent. So I think that is what influences. You don't know what it lasts, but you grow up so naturally thinking of that nothing is impossible. This happened, I was in Ferguson in Pune in 12th standard. I had a roommate who was from the forces, and she had come there to join AFMC and had never heard of the college. So when she took me there and showed, and I saw something distinctly different, which I could, sync with, and I said, this is where I want to be. And I understood that kind of feeling many years later when I was dean, and I was doing interviews for the students selections, and there was one kid who came in and he said, I kind of felt that previous year he'd come. So I said, how many times have you, and his age gap was there. He said, this is my 5th attempt at applying for that. I said, in 5 years you would have finished an MSc. I mean, why are you still, and why are you not joining any other college? He says, ma'am, at the 4th, of course he'd done very well at the 5th attempt, but his answer fascinated me, because what he said was, he says, ma'am, at the 4th attempt, I had come with the think, if I don't make it now, I'm giving up. And then I was already the dean. He says, and suddenly I saw this black car come in, and you get out in that combat dress, and I said, this is what I want to do. You get what I mean? So this is where you get your passion. And he says, I've come for the interview. I said, you've made it now, congratulations, because you've done very well. And of course, it was not easy, because convincing dad that I want to join the armed forces in 78 was not the easiest thing to do. But then again, my grandmother stood by me. So that's how it was. It sounds cliche, but conflict at work will always be there. Just that conflict at home will always be there. When they're two different people and both have a strong mind, I think what is important is, as you grow, you realize that conflict management, the management changes. Initially, you just start with fighting that this is what I want. And then as you start listening to people's perspective, and as you start communicating, you find conflict management becoming easier and easier. And the conflict management changes with what the goal is. I mean, you start seeing the bigger picture. I mean, I can explain with examples if you need, but when you look at the bigger picture and you say, okay, is this what I want to get out? Then the people who are involved are more important. So maybe I do a little give and take. But when my goal is very fierce, then I'm like a shark. Then it doesn't matter. Wear it, and you use authority. So you have to have the right mixture of head and heart while doing a conflict management, and never agree not to be rigid, because there's always a scope for, when you listen to the perspective and discuss it out, I think it works out better. And I can assure you, in the army it was even more difficult, because firstly you're in a, I won't say male dominated, but it's predominantly male. And until you were a doctor in the hospital, it didn't matter, because there were nurses, there you looked at as a doctor. But when you started becoming senior and coming into administrative posts, it was not easy to convince them. So at that time, again, you used a little bit of, and I feel a woman is very well endowed to do that, because she's ready to listen. And there were times, I mean, I have done it, where the idea of getting something was more important than proving that it's my idea. So I've gone and discussed it with seniors and sold it to them that it became their idea. And then the success came through. But everyone in the bottom of their heart knows whose idea it was. So it doesn't really matter. I think that's also important. Success is achieving what you wanted and how you got it. Because what you correctly said is the journey is as important. If you're happy doing it, sometimes you may not have got to where you wanted to, but you got almost there, but you've enjoyed the whole process. I think that is, to me, more successful than having got everything. I mean, there were so many times that even today, people would, a lot of, this thing would say that had you not, I had a brilliant academic track record of CBSE, national level topper, university, every subject of my medical school. And they said, like, I mean, you didn't really get into a very high tech, you would have become a top notch neurosurgeon or a cardiothoracic, this thing. And so is that success, or the journey that I enjoyed and I achieved something more and made everything after making a decision that this is what I want? Then my definition of success is different, because it was a choice I had made. So I thought that I don't mind if I didn't have some of the things which maybe someone else has. So instead of feeling that I didn't get this, I didn't get that, I enjoyed every bit that I got. And along the way, I would like to share one thing is I think it's difficult. I myself sometimes feel like I didn't, but I didn't let negative things influence me. There were a lot of setbacks. I mean, as a woman, being top of the batch, I lost seniority at 20 years of service and I was put bottom of the batch saying, oh, but you were short service. Because at that time, girls got only salt. So, and there were opportunities and even trying to, there to bit, go and fight, go to court. But I took a conscious decision not to. I felt that's not everything, that just getting my next before someone else. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, so I'm not going to change from that. So I think these were some of the decisions, again to me, which worked and I felt brought me more success than fighting and getting everyone against me or upset about. This thing about wanting to, having chosen pediatrics and then wanting to get into nephrology, the organization wasn't ready because it's difficult to explain now, but at the time when I wanted to, pediatrics itself was a very secondary subject in the armed forces because the armed forces was for the soldiers. So medicine, surgery, cardiology, nephrology, they were and even today they would be, pediatrics is okay also. So it was not something that a person with a top career would first choose. And then after that, in that also the better thing was intensive care, neonatology. And there was no one doing this and I said I want to do nephrology. So the organization did not, and I lost a lot of time. I mean, I went finally when I got my sabbatical, I had to fight for 5 years. 5 years. So I think that could have been a huge setback because going to do nephrology at the age of 40, I was 40 by then. And it's not easy to go back to becoming a resident in a specialty. So that if you look at the traditional thing, it's a big failure. But how it turned into success was I could assimilate much faster. What people would need 3 years, I could achieve it in 1 year. I could do international fellowships and I could become, because I had years of lateral experience. Sometimes you feel focused, degree ke baad degree, degree ke baad degree. I have to finish one after the other. So within 5 years, I could establish, I could this, and author textbooks, carry out research. And by the 7th year, I was already president of the society. So what was lost in that, had I taken it as a failure, would have could make me miserable. But I said, it's never too late. I'll catch up. So you can always do that. It's your attitude which matters. I think one was being very focused. I mean, there were a lot of things I had to give up while doing this. I mean, there were events I would have enjoyed, like most other young people would want to, go out, partying. I couldn't do most of those. I had to remain, so being focused was very important to me. The skill of doing time management, because you had just that many hours. But how to pack in and how to prioritize. So that sometimes my colleagues will, how do you manage? I said, when I'm stuck with 3 things, I've got just this, I just shut my eyes and see what means most to me. And I just do it for that moment. And I say the rest I can handle. So I thought time management was a very important attribute. And I think if I look back, I think that thing of never say die, not to give up. Because there were times which, like I said, waiting for 5 years to do a specialty training or waiting forever to do something. Or even when I got a fellowship, and one of my colleagues said, I mean, by now anyone else in your shoes would have given up and gone home. But when you feel this is the last thing, I say, okay, I'll try one more time. I think these would be summed up as a few. I think it's both. It's vertical and horizontal integration of roles. Like even yesterday someone asked me and I said, which one? Well, I think I was a better doctor because I brought the strengths of a soldiering into the discipline, the determination, the focus of a soldier came into being a doctor. Because I was, good clinician, I was handling patients, I could teach better. So I became a better teacher. And so in that sense, there was horizontal, but there's another role which got a very important aspect. Along that side was the home front. Learning to handle children at home, learning to handle difficult situations at home, learning to be a senior officer's wife. It wasn't easy. I had to do those roles also. So, and bringing in the lateral learning of things from here, I think helped a lot. Yeah. So I think an opportunity and that willingness to take everything, like if I don't know it, I must try and learn it. And it's continuing now. I mean, you all will laugh about it for those who understand. 40 years in the army, and before that another 4 years of AFMC, and before that my dad in the railways abroad and all over. There was very little of Marathi that I had learned except for what you spoke at home. And today, the day I retired, next day I became Vice Chancellor of a state health university, which did everything in Marathi. I think if your priority is not excellence out of yourself, if your team is your priority, you start you bring out your excellence because you see happiness in the faces. So again, I'll share a simple example. For the first month, I was wherever I landed up. First, I was learning the Marathi files. And the second was, it had 600 people coming in every morning, clocking in, coming sometimes late. Typical state government, this thing. And there were just those files. And, when I used to watch out of the Vice Chancellor's window and it would be a set of tired people returning back. And I was just totally lost in that whole, no systems, from a very organized sector to, there were no protocols, no SOPs. And there was one person for 40 years that worked with that. So started understanding them. And one day, I literally pulled out my hair and I said, this is not getting me anywhere. It was pouring cats and dogs in Nasik, and I looked out of the window and I said, I feel like a cup of tea. And suddenly it struck me. So I rang up, I called the canteen guy and I said, start boiling. And as it makes, keep putting a cup of tea on everyone's table. I mean, it sounds very simple and people were shocked. And I said, whenever say Kulaguru ka cup, that's Vice Chancellor Kulaguru ka cup wala. And so everyone was, Areva, I've got a cup of tea on my table, I'm working. And then I just stood down while they were walking out. And there were smiles and they were very happy. And I was there, I said, I hope you enjoyed. And they said, no one in all these years has ever sent a cup of tea like that with so much. And said, so I said, life is not so bad. So these are simple, very, very simple things. But I realized the difference was in the army, we go in with a sense of belonging. There is a philosophy that my country first, my organization second, my subordinates third. There's no me about it. And it was nowhere to be seen in this place where I was working. So I said, if I've learned something, can I bring it here? And it's not easy to tell them, sermonize it. But I said I have to lead from the front, which again what a soldier does. So we started having weekend things. We said, let's make our campus, which was a big jungle. So we changed that into, we worked together. There was vada pav and chai at the end of it. And they said, we've never had so much fun doing clean. So it was like Tom Sawyer's whitewashing the fence. The task was made fun. The marbles were given. So they started enjoying. And that camaraderie started coming in. In the corporate sector, you have a lot of HR and team building. I just did it with very simple techniques. But that is what brought people together. And in 1.5 years, it's a changed place. We have a green campus with drip irrigation and there's a sense of belonging because all of them. And the target to them was June 20, it was just 1.5 years away. I had taken over in December of 21. And June of 23 was 25 years of the university. So I gave them a target. I said, till then, We're going to have it so good that on that day you're going to bring your whole families here and take around. And what you said is your success. When I stood like grandmother there and was watching in from there, and even at 11 at night there were people, because we put water fountains, landscape. So they were there, everyone was taking pictures and enjoying it. And I didn't need to look for anywhere else for her. Firstly, I think it's okay to be less than perfect and prioritize, because in life, just your reaching at the top, reaching alone is not important. I think it's important that you have your family with you, your children with you. So if you take like I went for a post-graduation a year later, nephrology was later. So my son was small and I thought he should be at least 2.5 before he, I can put him into some kind of a preschool and then I start a post-graduation. So sometimes making these little steps, taking a back step gives you larger gains in your overall field. The second is, I think women shouldn't be very harsh about themselves. It's okay to say I can't manage it, fair enough. But I think most important is your family and your friends and your spouse.
Actually, the armored corps and the mechanized forces are a very technology savvy force anyway, whether in the United States or in our country. And like everybody knows that everything is becoming more and more miniature. And all our systems in a tank, actually what you are trying to do, in fact my question which I didn't ask you was, why aren't you in the defense sector trying to use your software? Like today you have got SDR written in the first, when you're coming in. It is the SDR radios which are making communications so much better. And also for the security, it is the SDR things which keep things out or secret or things like that. So there is a huge scope for technology and especially software, the field that you actually deal in, to be utilized in the tanks. And what you're trying to do in the cars is exactly what we also require in the tanks. The same systems. I mean, we have systems which are 1500 horsepower engines, and we have got the guns which are all on electrical based systems, and we have got the autoloaders and all those kinds of things. Everything is automated today.
Why can't, I mean, now that he says it, I mean, you can have unmanned ones, no?
Yes, unmanned ones. So that
yes, so there's no this thing. Then everything is controlled remote, and only women can run it.
Exactly.
Because she can multitask. She can see, now they have 3. You have a driver, you have a loader, and you have a gunner. One woman can do those 3 things.
Especially women do multitasking.
I think I didn't have to give her lectures. She saw me balancing all those roles, but giving importance and time for family and adjusting. They grew up seeing how dad and mom are taking steps, adjusting. I think these were the lessons which I think are important, especially in the younger generation, which has quick fix solutions, which is losing, there is no more letter writing. It's a quick this thing. So you have quick gratification. You want to see quick results. I mean, I don't think we knew it 40 years ago that we'd land up, reaching here. So I think that is life's biggest lessons that probably I could give the children. We didn't, because the army is very clear. They want only that much percentage. So even when we join in AFMC, they take only 20 girls and 100 boys.
Okay.
So, and retaining is just not there. I mean, the girls have a staying power, so they retain themselves. The organization doesn't try to retain them. But in all other organizations today, it's a huge thing. And if you what you correctly prioritize. The only one thing which really matters is care of children. So I think most organizations are giving huge amount of this work from home, little more of flexibility of flexi time working, and it's those few years.
Yeah.
If they can be sustained for those few years, you have good creches, you have good daycares, you have at workplace these things. If you retain them, it's a take off after that. You don't have to do anything, because after that it's not that the organization then has to retain them. They want to retain themselves.
So I think that is what's important.